I was at an art fair in 2010 when someone tipped me off to go check out a new Bruce Conner installation. And my knowledge of Conner's work at that point, to be honest, was pretty piecemeal. I mean, as an undergrad in the late 1980s, I had seen snippets of his early collage films, and I knew that he was considered the godfather of MTV for that rapid-fire editing style that seems to predate music video by 30 years. But I didn't know then was that his usual responses to that dubious honor were first, "Don't blame me," and second, "Where's my paycheck?" So as I made my way over there, I could hear the Ray Charles song booming, but it was when I got in there that those nearly assaultive visuals just plastered me to the back wall of the gallery. And I just watched it over and over. I've watched it countless times since, and I've learned since then that with all of Conner's work, his sculptures, his works on paper, he designs the visual field to be so densely filled with incident that you could never take it in all in one go. So basically what Conner did in 2006 was he made 3-screen Ray as a kind of sequel or expanded version of his original 1961 Cosmic Ray. So he was definitely aware that he was staking his claim as not only the inventor of music video, but also as the sort of predictor of information overload. But I know that he disdained both of those ideas. When he was asked, he was a sort of shy guy, didn't say a lot. He said it was about light. So before going on to the film, I just want to say a word or two about the song that inspired Bruce Conner, because it was 1959 when Ray Charles released What I Say, and that inspired the original Cosmic Ray. So basically, the Ray Charles song, Ray Charles invented soul music out of whole cloth in one song, and he did that by taking the call and response of church singing and moving it into the bedroom. So it was the blessed union of gospel and rhythm and blues, and that was enough to get the song banned in the South in those days. So Conner said early on that when he made Cosmic Ray, he was trying to picture what was in the mind's eye of the blind singer. So converting sound into vision, he created this visual correlative out of the dualisms that were already in the Ray Charles song. So sex and combat, sex and religion, female and male, creation and destruction, and then overlaying it with a social scenario where it was freedom versus repression, change versus stasis, life versus death. And he had no trust of institutions. I mean, he was both a beatnik and a hippie before either of those marketing terms were invented. But he had no faith in the countercultural belief that the individual could get back to the garden of innocence and freedom. He knew that institutions such as the church, the military, the government, school, the mass media would always be there to stunt, control, and stifle change. And he didn't believe that art could affect political change. He thought that the artist should be both within and apart from the society in which they lived. And if you had to participate in public life, you were supposed to lampoon it, if not completely travesty it. And as a proof of that belief, in 1967, this is real, he actually ran for the position of town supervisor in San Francisco. This is a real campaign poster he made and posted up all over the place. And that's an actual speech he gave. Yeah, he read that out loud. There was a crowd, and he wound up getting like 7% of the vote. So that dessert campaign speech for me is a great contradiction, because it's a very clever riff on the possibilities for political change in a culture dominated by consumerism, but it's also a demand for useless and endlessly inventive forms of pleasure. So it's good or bad depending on how you look at it. What's the relevance of 3-screen Ray for us today? When I watch it now, I view it through the lens of both Connor's statement that it was originally, he was making a work about light, but also I came across a Thelonious Monk quotation that was used as an epigraph in Thomas Pynchon's Against the Day. And Monk said, and I know Connor would have loved this, "It's always night, otherwise we wouldn't need light." And I take that to mean that we're always in darkness, but that the flickering revelations of art can provide us enough illumination to see ourselves and our surroundings, even if only partially and briefly. And in between the frames of the film, he would insert black and white frames to create that great flicker effect. And I think he did that to make you aware that you're looking at a film in a room, but also to register unconsciously with the viewer that film, the technology of film, which is distinct still images sped up to produce the illusion of movement, we're always in half blackness all the time anyways. At the end of the film, I should say Connor always avoided the public eye except for when he was doing stunts like that. But he was always part of a tight-knit community of artists. And he featured a friend of his, an artist, at the end of Three Screen Ray and Cosmic Ray, the painter Joan Brown. He took a snippet from an unrealized portrait of Joan and included it at the end. And I think he included her as a kind of surrogate self-portrait of the artist, as a model of change, quick change, evasion, and always being both among and apart. And watch for the hat flying off, different hats flying onto and off of her head. I think that's both a very sly homage to early trick cinema and malaise, but it's also a life lesson, which is to never stop mutating in order to never become the thing of an institution. So that mysterious game between filmmaker and subject, crucially two artists, is like a signature for me to Three Screen Ray, and where I'd like to leave off. With a sort of mild SOS for the arts that, when I talk about it, makes me sound like a doomsayer and curmudgeon. But I believe that in all the arts, and I'm not alone in this, everyone says it, it's been said a million times, no one seems to do anything about it, that we're really in a crisis of the arts, or kind of malaise. And the causes of that may be many and hard to pin down. I think you could guess, maybe I'm thinking technology might play a role in that. And I've read about a British study recently which posited that the decline in creativity might be due to the disappearance of boredom in our always plugged-in age, right? So those long expanses of time where we used to have nothing to do but use our imaginations, and which we now use our cell phones for. Or it could be economic, when the entire edifice of middle-class life crumbled, as it's crumbling right now, did it take the loyal opposition of bohemians, freaks, and outsiders with it? Or is the malaise really a result of the ethos of the market completely penetrating our deepest subjective recesses? The other day I heard the phrase attention economy, and the head of Google said that would define life in the 21st century. And that to me sounded like the title of like a dystopian science fiction novel. And I'm not advocating some Luddite flight from the present, but I do think if we were able to drain the reservoir of stolen time and attention, just a hair even, I think that the art would get deeper and more lasting. So, in conclusion, in an absence of not knowing what else to do, I would like to offer a semi-serious, modest proposal, which would be small communities like Connor and Joan Brown of like-minded artists who would sort of gather together in secret, and those groupings of young and old, which is crucial, young and old, would act as a buffer against the forms of competition and control and monitoring that constitute the dark side of social media. So these groupings would be like among us, but not of us, like the new cults. And they would sort of participate in extreme endurance marathons of attention, like drone music marathons, or they would ingest epic books and film, just like termites boring away at them, like a yoga for the mind. And I think that what I'm trying to say is that the space in between the individual and the work of art should also be the space between individuals looking at a work of art together, and that might shield us from the agents of the sort of Oz-like control that seek to make you a bought and sold product. So only connect, as E.M. Forster said, but do it in secret. And let it grow and change, and when you're ready to make your list of demands known, make sure you leave room for dessert.